I'm the Executive Director of Western States Legal Foundation in California, which is a 26-year-old nuclear disarmament advocacy group. And I'm also the North American Coordinator of Mayors for Peace, which is an international organization of mayors headed by the mayors of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, dedicated to the abolition of nuclear weapons in a broader peace and justice context, and currently involved in a campaign for the elimination of nuclear weapons by the year 2020. Mayors for Peace has grown now to include over 2,400 members in 131 countries. We have now, as of today, we have 129 members in the United States. Shortly after the U.S. atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August of 1945, Mahatma Gandhi said, quote, "It has been suggested by American friends that the atom bomb will bring in nonviolence, as nothing else can. It will if it is meant that its destructive power will so disgust the world that it will turn away from violence for the time being. So far as I can see, the atomic bomb has deadened the finest feeling that has sustained mankind for ages. The atom bomb brought an empty victory to the Allied armies, but it resulted for the time being in destroying the soul of Japan. What has happened to the soul of the destroying nation is yet too early to see." And I think we're seeing it. In his 1995 testimony to the International Court of Justice, the Hiroshima mayor, Takashi Hiraoka, told the court, "History is written by the victors. Thus, the heinous massacre that was Hiroshima has been handed down to us as a perfectly justified act of war. As a result, for over 50 years, we have never directly confronted the full implications of this terrifying act for the future of the human race. Looking around the world today, we see the military legacy of the way in which World War II ended, declaring that U.S. plans for a missile base in Poland, quote, cannot go unpunished. Russia is considering arming its Baltic fleet with nuclear warheads for the first time since the end of the Cold War. On October 2nd, Russia announced plans to deploy a new nuclear missile shield next year, designed to penetrate anti-missile defenses, and will build 8 submarines to carry it. As long as we are a nuclear power, no hotheads will venture to attack our country." Authors of the 150-page blueprint for restructuring the transatlantic military partnership, entitled Towards a Grand Strategy for an Uncertain World, include General John Shalikashvili, former NATO commander in Europe. As we are experiencing, well, sharply rising and falling oil prices, rising food prices, and food shortages around the world, amidst symptoms of a growing global economic collapse, and experiencing inability to cope with natural disasters like the cyclone in Myanmar, Burma, the earthquake in China, much less global climate change. But rather than redirecting resources badly needed to meet human and ecological needs, trends seem to be going in the opposite direction. The Encarta Encyclopedia describes militarism, quote, as advocacy of an ever stronger military as a primary goal of society, even at the cost of other social priorities and liberties. This definition, I think, accurately describes the reality of current United States national security policy, as well as the national security policies of a growing number of countries. The United States military dominates the globe now through its operation of 10 unified combatant commands, overseeing a network of well over 700 foreign bases in more than 60 countries. And I want to note that the U.S. military also maintains over 6,000 bases in the United States. So if you're looking for a local manifestation of U.S. militarism in your community, I'll bet you could find one. The Nuclear Posture Review expanded the role of nuclear weapons in U.S. national security policy, including the possible use of nuclear weapons in, quote, immediate potential or unexpected contingencies against 7 named countries, including Iraq, Iran, and North Korea, and called for indefinite retention of a large, modern, and diverse nuclear force. STRATCOM Commander General Kevin Chilton told reporters this spring, quote, as we look to the future, and I believe we are going to need a nuclear deterrent for this country for the remainder of this century, the 21st century, the British government has endorsed the use of its Menwith Hill radar station for the U.S. missile defense system. China, the only non-proliferation treaty nuclear weapon state to maintain a no-first-use policy, nevertheless plans to replace its sea-launched ballistic missiles. And China is massively expanding its military budget, which nearly doubled from $62.5 billion in 2004 to $121.9 billion in 2006, which sounds like a lot of money. But to put this in context, in 2006, the United States spent about $54 billion on its nuclear forces alone. But in 2008, it is estimated that the United States will spend $711 billion on its military, which is 48% of the world total. And all of this is in the name of protecting our national security. The recently signed U.S.-India deal would provide India, a non-nuclear non-proliferation treaty party, with nuclear technology and materials that might enable it to further develop its weapons programs. Israel and Pakistan are reportedly pursuing similar deals. We need to fundamentally redefine security. We must put universal human security and ecological sustainability at the heart of conflict resolution and prevention. At the invitation of the German government, representatives from 60 countries met in Berlin this April to foster and promote the development of renewable energies worldwide in response to the growing demand for energy and the necessity to address global warming. And this is one very promising area for cooperation between civil society and governments. The pursuit of nuclear energy has become a leading cause of conflict around the world due to the inherently dual-use nature of the fuel cycle. And we just have to phase out and move beyond nuclear power as well as fossil fuels if we are to achieve a world of human and ecological security. There is an urgent need for what I'm now calling security and sustainability education. Whether conducted formally in schools and universities or informally in town halls and village squares, this education should promulgate a paradigm shift in the way security is commonly understood. Security must no longer be defined in terms of national security based on military might. It should be redefined in terms of universal human security and sustainable environmental policies and practices. In the field of nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation, it means facing the inextricable link between nuclear weapons and nuclear power, grappling with the relationship between nuclear and conventional military power, confronting the gross economic disparities between the wealthy elites and the vast majority of the human family, identifying and challenging those who benefit from nuclear weapons and militarism, and preparing for peace instead of war by teaching and reinforcing the importance of nonviolent conflict resolution at every level of society. If he is elected U.S. President, it is unlikely that Barack Obama will make dramatic changes to entrenched U.S. military policies. However, there will be an opening, as many people have said here, to put pressure on this new administration, and we're going to have to do that. That pressure is going to need to come from the bottom up. It's going to need to come from people around the world as well as from people inside the United States. So in conclusion, I think we need to build a broader, deeper international movement which recognizes the fundamentally difficult realities of the military-industrial complexes and which links issues of peace, justice, and ecological sustainability. I think that nuclear disarmament should serve as the leading edge of a global trend towards demilitarization and redirection of military expenditures to meet human and environmental needs. And that's what Mayors for Peace is working for. As Gandhi observed, the moral to be legitimately drawn from the supreme tragedy of the bomb is that it will not be destroyed by counter-bombs, even as violence cannot be by counter-violence. Mankind has to get out of violence only through nonviolence. Hatred can be overcome only by love. Counter-hatred only increases the surface as well as the depth of hatred. Quote, "We have to make truth and nonviolence not matters for mere individual practice, but for practice by groups and communities and nations. Before general disarmament commences, some nation will have to dare to disarm herself and take large risks. The level of nonviolence in that nation, if that event happily comes to pass, will naturally have risen so high as to command universal respect. Her judgment will be unerring, her decisions firm, her capacity for heroic self-sacrifice will be great, and she will want to live as much for other nations as for herself."